All right. Welcome to another episode here at the Masculine Health Solutions podcast. Today, I am thrilled to bring you Jordan, aka GB9. You can definitely look him up on Twitter, see what he's all about. An expert when it comes to PE. All right. Well, without further ado, guys, let's get into it. Before we get started, one more thing. If you want to get any PE gear, be sure to check out TotalManShop.com. That is TotalManShop.com. And use the promo code MHS2020. Promo code is MHS2020 and get 12% off. Be sure to check out their wide variety of all kinds of good quality PE equipment. All right? And that's promo code MHS2020 for 12% off. And the website, once again, is TotalManShop.com. All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode here at the Masculine Health Solutions podcast. Today, I got Jordan, aka GB9, on Twitter. He's going to share his story, and he's going to talk about his journey, talk about what got him started, and, just more into his personal view into PE. A lot of it I already agree with, but we're just going to jump into more of that in detail. So Jordan, tell us a little bit about yourself. And first off, tell us where we can find you and just why you got started in PE. And man, just go for it. Let me know.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Like I said, my name's Jordan. I go by GB9, Getting Bigger 9 on Twitter, OnlyFans. I do have a Pornhub. I try to post there as much as possible. But yeah, I started doing PE more out of curiosity than anything else. I always found it interesting how, we can, there's tribes out there that can literally put rings around their neck and stretch their neck out. There's African tribes out there who've, done extensive stretching of their penis, and it's like to their chest and stuff. And I was always like, if women can do all this stuff, I know they can do breast augmentation. They can alter their appearance some ways. I feel like there's a way for us to do it. When I was younger, like 17, 18, I was huge in terms of like anatomy, science. I was just a general nerd. I was the guy in the back of the class. Until you talked to me, I didn't really talk to anyone else, but it's just how I was. But I always looked at anatomy, and I kind of looked at like how the tissue works and things along those lines. And I was like, there has to be a way to manipulate this. For me personally, it was more out of curiosity than it was like, oh, I have to be bigger. This has to work. I have to do something about this. Because even with me being, chubby, I've always kind of been body positive. Like I'm always about like, hey, you know what? Yeah, I'm a bit chubby, but I always find a plus side to it. Even back then, I was still pretty heavy. But like I said, it started off as me just being generally curious about how this works. But I will say that when I looked up stuff online, if you type in joking, you'll find just tens of thousands of results.
Yeah.
I actually discovered a site when I was 18, I believe, called lpsg.org or com. I think they might have changed how you search it. But anyway, and you go on that forum, it's all of there's stuff about PE, there's stuff about porn, it's just a whole bunch of stuff. But the PE aspect interests me. And I was reading and reading and reading, seeing other people's experiences, and you always get the, oh, this doesn't work.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I always thought like, I have to prove it doesn't work for me to say it doesn't work.
Yeah.
I don't know if that would maybe susceptible to a pyramid scheme or not, but I had to see that it's a scheme before I know like, okay, yeah, back off. But so I tried it, and to be 100% honest, when I first started, I read like, oh, you're supposed to do like 30 minutes a day. You're supposed to do these type of stretches and all this other stuff, and I did injure myself. Now it wasn't severe, it wasn't like total loss or anything, but I started thinking like, is there something I did wrong? Because like for me, I just don't quit on the first failure. I always try to look back and see maybe what did I do. So just simple common sense said that if I'm joking for 30 minutes, how many repetitions is that? What exactly am I doing? I always give gym examples because I feel like that's the most proper analogy to understand. If
Yeah.
I tell you to go to the gym for 30 minutes and work out, that doesn't really, what does that mean? Does that mean you lift? It
It's
doesn't
too
give you an
broad.
idea.
Yep. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And so I started narrowing it down. Okay, I joked for 30 minutes, but how that was hundreds possibly. And I can't lift a dumbbell hundreds of times within a 30-minute period relentlessly.
Yeah.
And I started slowly breaking it down, and then eventually it became where, okay, I need to warm up because I preach about safety and using caution all the time more than I talk about the actual routine because
Yeah.
I know that there's gonna be people who are new. I preach about making sure that you're in the right mental state before you start doing any PE. Because I have guys who message me sometimes and they're like, if I don't do this, I'm less of a person. I'm like, no, that is not the case. Like, like, I feel I do more therapy sometimes, and I've actually told some guys like, hey, you know, work on yourself personally, then get back to me when you're feeling better,
Yeah.
because I don't want people to feel like this is the only thing they can do to improve themselves. Because there's a lot of times on there where I really I don't ask for it, but I'll get pictures. I'm starting to see how women feel. Like we need to work on that, gentlemen, about not just sending pictures. And I'm like, why do you need to do this? Well, this is wrong. This is wrong, or this needs to be long. I'm like, bro, you're fine. It's all in your head at that point.
Yeah.
You know? And there's that aspect when it comes to women too, because it's very controversial. I'm going to say, I feel that men, we get set to the side when it comes to self-esteem. It's just a matter of making 200 grand a year, no pimples on your face, and the whole Chad meme actually makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
It's easy to make fun of the incel. It's easy to make fun of the loser guy, but then when you really look at it, it's like, you can go on Facebook or whatever. And we all had that one girl we know from high school. She says, "Oh, I've had such a horrible day. I'm so sad." And like a bazillion comments of people you didn't even know you were friends with will be commenting, "What's wrong? I'm here for you." But the minute you're like, "Oh man, today sucks," you may get your one bro from school who says something, and that's it. There is
Yeah.
like a stigma behind it, but it's understandable. I have two sisters, so I get that part.
Yeah.
But for us men, it's a more about we have, and it's starting to come to light a little bit. I know I'm kind of getting off topic, but it's starting to come to light a little bit with, I've seen like Dr. Phil episodes of boys who go through anorexia where they feel they have to have the six pack abs. And I felt like I was seeing so much information about PE, jelking, pumping, and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm asking people like, why didn't this work for you? And I'm like, they're not, in my opinion, doing it right. So it started off with me self-experimenting. It started off with me failing, messing up, doing things wrong, and then going, what did I do wrong? And then I started putting that information like, hey, 30 minutes straight makes no sense. This needs to be a slow routine. You need to build up to it. You need to have, like when you go to the gym, once again, you don't just hit the dumbbell for 30 minutes like this and then wonder why like your arm isn't working the next day. It's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
But I also feel that there's a lot of guys who are impatient too, and that's the big problem. So yeah,
I agree
that's a
with you
huge
on.
problem.
Well, dude, a lot of the times too, because it's funny too. I want to touch on like the messages that I get. Random dudes like, "I'm edging today." I'm like, "That's fantastic. Why are you sending me this picture?"
Yeah, the same thing. Like I got, and I'm not like I try not to like. I'm not bi or anything, but I'm sexually open. Like, so you can talk to me about. Um, I've had girls who were talking to me like, yeah, this guy last night, he just blows my mind. I'm like, cool. I don't know why we're having this conversation, but it is what it is. Before I ever met my wife, I was actually thinking about getting into the porn industry. I have people in my family who used to be part of it in
Okay.
terms of like production. Yeah. So when you talk about sex to me, if I'm a also like I'm like a nudist as well too. So one of the things is I want to lose weight, go to New Beach, but yeah, this is me. I worked hard for this. But sex doesn't bother me. But then when I get a random picture, I'm just like, why? Like, I don't, I really don't. Like, now, if you're asking me questions, I'm like, okay, fine, but just as like, hey, here's my dick. I'm like, cool, I
Cool.
guess I could.
Yeah,
Yeah, like, yeah, thanks. But
yeah.
yeah, I get it. I get it.
I agree with you on
Um,
that. Yeah, because it's the same deal where buddies like flexing. He's like, yeah, bro, I'm making these games. I'm like, that's fantastic. I don't need to see this, but
exactly. Exactly. Like women out there, I understand. I feel for you now.
oh,
I feel
100%.
for you.
But no, it's let's see, back to you talking about guys rushing into it too. And I think that's kind of one of the biggest things that are confusing people when it comes to PE. It's like I think too many people are kind of sold on like I saw that meme on your Twitter too, where they're like, if you take this, you'll be 6 inches of pure
Yeah.
gains overnight. I'm like, bro, that what? Like, no, it doesn't work like that. Like,
Yeah.
when have you ever seen a physiological change of like up to 6 inches overnight? I'm like, it doesn't happen. You're not gonna take a pill and then all of a sudden magically in 3 weeks, you're gonna have a 14-inch dick. It doesn't work, man.
Exactly. Exactly.
And it's kind of like it's interesting you say that too, because when it comes to PE, for some reason, people just want to believe that. I feel it's almost like they want it so bad. Like, if I take this pill, it's got yohimbe and a whole bunch of other things that sure they may be good for you, and it may improve a little bit of circulation, but it's not gonna, just drastically improve the size of your Johnson overnight, man.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
talk to me more about like the guys that you dealt with that kind of have that mindset and how you kind of steer them in the right direction.
Yeah, definitely. It actually comes from me being in sales since I was like 16. I had a job at GNC for a while, and I would have people who walk in. I'm gonna tell you a story because I repeat this story every time because it blows my mind. I'm working at GNC. I have a guy who walks in. He's like, I want something that makes me lose weight. And I corrected him right then and there. I was like, I don't have anything that will make you lose weight. I have weight loss aids, which means that you're going to have to still do something. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm like,
Yep.
okay, well, I can point you in the right direction on some things. And he was like, okay, fine, let me see what you have. I said, well, if you take it was it was some kind of maybe like hydroxycut, or this is
Oh yeah,
before.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, this is after they made everything safe, where they didn't
Yeah,
put
with
all that
took out the
craziness in it.
ephedrine. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
So I was like, yeah, you can take this, but you're gonna have to change up how you eat a little bit. I don't want to do that. I was like, okay, well, just keep track of like what you're eating. That I'm not doing that. And this is like his legit, like, I'm not doing that. I'm like, okay. I was like, well, you don't have to like. I was like, well, you might want to work out or something too. Kind of get. He's like, I'm not working out. I want something that makes me lose weight. And I'm like, and it's to the point where I feel like I'm being trolled or something.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, I don't really have anything for that. And the thing that threw me off the most is that when I told him that, I said, there's nothing that's just going to make you lose weight that
Yeah.
wouldn't cause a medical problem. He's like, I'll go somewhere else where people know what they're talking about. I was like, okay, I just have a good one. Like, that was it. But that mindset is so prevalent. I
Yeah, I was
don't
gonna
know if
say.
it's an American thing. I don't know if it's just us in general, but it's like, I want this thing right here that's going to work immediately, and I have to do nothing for it. And it's just like, that does not work.
No.
That it like when people tell me I have a way for you to make $1 million on a month, I'm like, why aren't you making $1 million on a month? Like, what? Yeah, you know what I mean? And that's just always how I've been. Like, it's insane. But when guys tell me that, I don't immediately jump to, um, no, that's not going to work. I ask them, why do you need it in this time frame? And a lot of people have been honest. Oh, there's a girl I like, things are heating up. I want to impress her. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. I
Okay,
try to
yeah.
figure out what the urgency is, because if I tell you, if a girl was to come to you and tell you, I need to lose 30 pounds within like 3 months. You're like, why? Oh, summer's coming up. There's a reason behind that rushness, and I feel like
Yeah.
you have to put people's mind at ease.
No, 100%
Um,
agree. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Because if you don't, because I hate that quick sell, like, oh, yeah, just go ahead and sign up for my OnlyFans. I make my little $8, and what on there is going to work, and you just work out every day. And that, I feel like that's very unrealistic. I feel like that's scammy, and I feel like that isn't, because if you're telling someone, like, you see those ads, 3 weeks will gain an inch or whatever. When it
Yeah.
doesn't happen, they're like, I failed. This doesn't work. It's bullcrap. I tell people, dude, it's going to take like weeks and months,
Months.
and
Yeah.
if you and be realistic too. Like I ask people, oh, I want to be 9 inches. I'm like, why? Like I'm so opposite of like typical porn that it annoys some people. I'm like, why do you need to be 9 inch? Well, this and this. I'm like, but why? What is 9 inches really going to accomplish besides you saying that? Because
Yeah.
gentlemen, I promise you, I have friends who are gay, and I'm friends with a lot of women. They do not care. If you say you have 9 inches, they're like, okay, cool. Like they don't bust out a tape measure and go, no, 8.8. That's not gonna work. They don't. Like as long as it feels good and you're just tearing it up, they don't care. Like
Yeah.
plain and simple.
I
You know?
mean, there is truth to that, but the thing is, for me, the way I kind of see it too, it's like, where are you at right now, and what's a realistic goal for you to set for yourself, right? And for
Exactly.
me, over the years, it's kind of like, I got goals, and I always change it every 3 months, right? Because if I'm gaining, then obviously it's the same as the gym. If I want to reach that PR that I've never reached before, well, obviously I got to strive a little bit higher. But at the same
Yeah.
time, I'm not going to go in there and be like, well, you know what, I can bench about 4 plates today. I'm doing 6 next week. It's like, well, why? What is
Yeah.
the reasoning
Exactly.
behind it, right? And I
Yeah.
100% agree with you on that.
Yeah, because like with me, the reason I use the gym analogy so much is that, I'm still pudgy. I struggle with weight a little bit, but I go in the gym and it's like, I start off benching 135, then it was 155, now it's 175. Now my max, now I don't go too high because I'm usually by myself and I don't want to be, that meme you see on Facebook or
Yeah,
YouTube,
just
someone like
start.
drop, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I can go up to 225 comfortably by myself. And the thing is, when people say I'm going to bench 400, I'm like, is it competition? Is it
Yeah.
personal? I'm literally asking just why. What is the purpose behind you wanting to do this? And then when they give me that purpose of, you know what, I think it'll just be cool. I'm like, okay, well, let's work your way up to that because you might think 9 is ridiculous. Like I'm rocking this right now and I feel great. I've increased in girth or erection strength. 9 is just stupid. It was great as a thought, and that was it. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's why I try to get down to the reasoning. Like for me, it was more just curiosity. And then I'm not going to lie, there is a little bit of ego boost behind it.
100%.
Yeah, there is an
Confidence
ego
booster.
boost. Yeah. And I understand that with men, especially when we're younger. Now, I try to make sure I'm not talking to young men. Like when I was 18, I felt like that was way too young to be experimenting
Yeah.
because I'm still growing, biologically speaking. But there is a confidence boost behind it where you know, she's going to be he or she is going to be surprised. Like
Yeah.
I've never thought I still can't to this day understand if this is like a compliment or like a sly remark. But I've had girls tell me like, for being a big guy, I didn't expect you to be like that. I was like, what does that mean? Like, because I'm fat, I'm supposed to be small. Like, what does that mean? Like, I don't, And I mean, oh no, I didn't mean it that way. It's just But I understand that. You don't
Yeah.
want to go to the gym and there's a whole bunch of just like monstrous swole dudes, and you're there barely being able to pick up a 25-pound weight. I think that's why like Planet Fitness is such a huge business because you don't want to be judged, and I
Yeah.
get that. No
I
one
understand
does.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's always strange to me when I see like videos of bodybuilders talking about how small they are. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, dude. Like, I wish I looked half of you. And I think that's the same thing with PE. I really do.
No,
You know, it,
it's funny you mentioned that too, because it's kind of like sometimes, like for me, my wife is the one that gives me perspective where I'll be like, I just don't feel that, my
yeah,
arms are big enough. And it's like, well, at 18 inches, your arms are pretty big. And I'm like, well, you know
yeah,
what? They could be bigger, right? And the thing is, I think when it comes to bodybuilding or just accomplishing anything, it almost seems like you want to keep leveling up, right? So there was
hmm
always that in the back of your mind as well. But at the same time, I think body dysmorphia is a real thing when it comes to PE or bodybuilding, because it's like, man, like you see it every day. You don't see the changes that are happening. I know I don't. I'm like, oh, snap. Like I lost 20 pounds and I don't feel like I see anything. Then you look at a picture and you're like, oh, snap, man. I look
yeah.
totally
Or people are
different.
coming up to you like, man, look at you, look great. And you're like, I do,
You're
you
like,
know?
well, I really don't feel like I do, but okay, I'll take it.
Exactly. And I think that's where it's great to have people who put you in that perspective.
Yeah.
Like for me personally, when it comes to PE, my wife was like, if it wasn't for your OnlyFans, you don't need to do this and stuff. And I've actually told her like, oh, I want to be a little bit bigger, but then I kind of think like, but why? Like I've seen guys where I'm like, you're bigger than me, and I feel bad for you because I'm just like, what are you doing with that? Like unless that person just absolutely wants to be destroyed, and women, believe it or not, gentlemen, when it comes to porn, women don't like that all the time. They really don't. There are
Yeah.
they show, and that's one of the reasons why I didn't really want to go in the porn industry because I feel like it lies. There's a lot of vaginal issues women go through of just dealing with these dudes who are obviously either surgically enhanced or they were just born a mutant. A lot of porn stars will even tell you, like, yeah, I don't really care for Danny D every day. I just want some regular, there's a perception that that's what you need to be in order to be the big man on campus.
Yeah.
And unless you find someone who likes that, I've had girls turn me down in the past. I've had where I start having sex and they're like, just stop. I don't like it, and not every girl wants that. My wife says, like, oh, you're just fine the way you are. You know, I'm not trying to get too deep in personal stuff, but if I pump, she actually likes that a little bit more. But then afterwards, she's like, "Oh, I'm sore. That was not, you were too rough." I'm like, "Well, you told me to do it, so it is what it is." But
Yeah.
don't think that's what makes you the man. That's what's gonna you're just gonna be just slanging all. No, that is very incorrect, and that's where I have an issue with our body dysmorphia is that we base it off of what we think is what needs to happen to succeed or what we need to be in order to be the man. And everyone goes through that. Like we were talking about bodybuilders, they go through that. You'll see some guy who looks like he could Game of Thrones just crush your skull and not flinch, and yet he thinks he's insignificant. He's too small. Why? Because Gerald over there benches 10 more pounds than he does. We always are comparing ourselves to other people or what we think we're comparing ourselves to. And I try to break that down as to why do you need this? What is it for? And what do you honestly hope that you're going to realistically accomplish? Because I've had guys who uh, I want to see. Maybe I could find this and give you the screenshot. But I had
Okay.
someone, I believe, on Tumblr. They said, "I'm going to combine your routine with others I've seen online," and I'm like, "Don't do that. Don't do that because you're overdoing it.
So
You're
wait, was he gonna try to do multiple routines
yeah.
at
He
the
was going
same
to do
time?
what I was teaching, and then something else he found online, and then just put them together. And I'm like, but why?
Why? Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm gonna
exactly.
say like,
Like
why
that.
would you do that? Like,
Yeah, and they have this weird. A lot of people have this weird perspective. If I do more, that means I'll succeed more. If I go faster, that means I'm going to get there faster. And that's not the case. You know,
uh-uh.
I mean, look at Amazon. Jeff Bezos didn't just. He's like, oh, if I stay up 3 more hours, and that means I'm going to get there faster. That might have actually been very counterproductive. It might have took
Yeah.
him 2 extra weeks because he stayed up at 3 a.m. But he did that. And then I was arguing with him and arguing with him, like, hey, don't do that. That makes no sense. He's a sense. And then I eventually, when I know I can't get through to someone, I just stop talking to them. I'll try to guide them through it, but when I can see it's a losing battle, like I said, I've been in sales for so long, I let the customer go. If you come up to me, you're like this, and I know you're just not listening, and you were just window shopping, but I just happened to target you, I let it go. My boss doesn't like I let it go. I let it go. And when that happened, I let it go. I want to say mm, maybe a month or so went by, and he was like, "Oh, I hurt myself. How do I fix this?" Blah blah. And I was like, dude, I said not to do this. Okay, yeah, we're past that, but how to, And I was like, you need to just go see a doctor at that point
Yeah.
because I tell people I'm not a doctor. This is stuff I've learned, I've researched, I've experimented on, and I said, oh, this and this works. And it's like a mental game sometimes with trying to get them to understand that faster doesn't mean quicker results. Longer doesn't mean quicker results.
No.
It takes a while. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, no, that's I think that's one of the most or probably one of the it's a recurring theme when it comes to PE. It's just like, if I hang heavy right from the get-go, I'm gonna get, it's like, dude, you
Yeah,
don't do that. You don't go to the gym and be like, I've never deadlifted before, but I'm gonna try to do 2 plates right off the bat. And it's like, what happened?
yeah,
Buddy got a hernia, like
exactly. Yeah, he
the
got a
same
hernia. He's
thing.
bent over like 80-year-old woman. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
it just doesn't make any sense. But if one thing you could describe to me a little bit, Jordan, is like, what does your routine kind of look like? What kind of tools do you use, and what's your setup kind of look like?
Okay. Well, when it comes to my routine, it's always a matter of warming up. So hot rag. I recently got more into the bath mate,
Yeah,
and I
I
was
saw that.
skeptical of it. Yeah, and I was skeptical because I feel like some of their ambassadors don't advertise it well to make it look more like a toy than a tool.
Yeah,
So when I finally got the option to, I use that at times with hot water, because one thing is when it comes to routine, you want to focus on making that tissue soft and hot. If just like we all know, if it's a little too cold, you could be rocking a 10 inch. Exactly. You're going to look like you have 2 inches, and, but it's all about keeping that tissue warm, because one of the things I noticed when I first started is that sometimes I would, can you hear that?
yeah, yeah. Don't worry, it's
Here,
all
give me,
good.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm by a yard. I'll wait for it. Usually pass in a second, 1 second. Can you edit this out?
We'll leave it in. It's all good. Adds a little bit of
Okay, I got you.
flavor to
Yeah,
it.
that works. But yeah, I always talk about keeping warm, because when that tissue gets cold, it hardens and it restricts. And then you're always fighting against that. And what that happens is you're creating tears, or those blood
Hmm.
vessels are stretching, they don't want to. And that's when you get into your problems of you're trying to fight expansion when your body naturally knows it needs to restrict. Our body does that for a reason, you know
Yeah.
if you've got some massive freaking oranges balls, and you're out hunting or whatever, and it's cold, that's a very dangerous situation, and your body knows to keep your balls warm,
Bring them
etc.
in. Yeah.
Exactly. But warming up is, I think, the most crucial thing ever. I've noticed that's where a lot of the injuries come from, of you fighting that restricted tissue. When you warm up and you pump or whatever the routine is, and you keep that warm tissue going throughout the whole routine, you notice like you feel just more pumped in the end. You feel thicker, you
Yeah.
feel fuller. You're like, oh damn! Like I've gotten out of a routine where it's joking pump or whatever. And I'm like, oh shit! I'm like, hey, wife, come here real quick. And she's like, she's like, are you gonna keep doing this forever? I was like, well, I mean, look at that. That's the ego boost. That's the pump out of the gym where you're like, you just got done
100%.
lifting it. Yeah, you're just like, oh, like look at these biceps. That's the exact same thing, but it's just like not stretching in the gym. It's just like just getting right into it, and then you hurt yourself. And then when it comes to like lubricants, I've learned that really
Everybody's out and about today.
no, this happens to me like when I'm trying to take a nap before work. Everyone wants to do stuff today. Um, that means I might have to move to a different room or something. But anyway, when it comes to like lubricants, um, I actually learned on LPSG by another member on there about vitamin E
Yeah.
oil, because it helps keep the skin nice and hydrated.
Okay.
Vitamin E oil is actually good for help with tissue repair, and baby oil works as well too. But I don't go for gels because they dry out easily.
Yeah.
A lot of my tools are literally just my hands. And when it comes to using your hands, I always try to tell people to, it's not a Laffy Taffy. You're not trying to yank, you're not trying to pull, you're not trying to stretch. It should be no stronger than the masturbation, because I've noticed guys have this mentality that they're trying to like stretch it out. I'm like, no, it's a milking sensation. I always tell people like release before the glands. It's a nice glide, a little strength. And that was my thought actually when I first started joking, is that you're trying to pull it like a rope. And that's where
Yeah.
obviously you injure yourself too. I
Ligament
had to
tears.
learn
Yeah.
that. Exactly. And when it comes to actual methods, the simple joke helps. It's going to help more with your length, because I've noticed that when I first started joking, my girth seemed like it was kind of compacting a little bit, and my length
Okay.
was getting there. But I started thinking like, okay, when people use pumps, sometimes they'll put a dick ring on and they'll
Yeah.
come out fatter afterwards. So then I do a lot of what I call the Yuli hold joke, where I hold the base with one and
Yeah.
I'm joking with the other. And that kind of mimics almost like using a penis pump, because I kind of like fill it out a little bit more. I hold that pressure
Gotcha.
in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, and it's very, like, you can go on what is that site called? There it, like Thunder
Thunder's
Place, I
place.
believe it's,
Yeah.
yes. And there's also another one,
PE
P
gym.
I think, yep, thank you.
Yeah.
PE gym. And it will, you can look at that stuff and say like, oh, this is kind of what he's doing. I
Yeah.
don't, a lot of the stuff is like information I've taken, I've tried, and then I've tweaked and I've experimented with. I try not to come off as like the know-it-all guru. I tell people all the time, like, oh, I just learned this. Or people say, what do you think about this? And I'm like, I'll research. I'm like, oh, wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So you can go on like PE Gym and look at what their exercises are and mimic those. But I feel like it's a lot deeper than just gelling,
Oh
you
yeah.
know,
I agree with
a
you on
lot
that.
deeper. Yes. And one of the issues I've had with trying to make content is that I find myself always going back to previous stuff, readjusting it, re-releasing it, and I'm not moving forward because a new person will bring my attention. Hey, what is this? What does this mean? How do you explain this? Can you go? And I'm always redoing stuff. I don't. It's hard, honestly, running an OnlyFans, because I don't know when it time to move on to more advanced stuff. Did I
Yeah.
cover enough? When the new people come, are they going to see the more advanced stuff, and they should be seeing honestly, OnlyFans is very different. It
Really.
really is. It's very, very hard.
Well, tell
You
me
know.
more about the breakdown of it, because I don't know anything really about it too much. Like I know that
Hmm.
I saw they wanted to shut it down recently, and they wanted to move more like a fitness kind of platform is what I
Yeah.
was seeing, or like classes and stuff. But I'm like, dude, I think 80% of your makeup is all
Oh,
like
it
adult
definitely
content,
is.
right? So
Oh yes, and that's kind of, I've always found kind of be strange. It's like Toyota saying they're going to make burgers now. It's kind of like, what are you doing? Like,
yeah,
but yeah, when
branding
it comes,
wise, yeah, it doesn't make any
exactly, people
sense.
know who you are. Yeah,
Yeah.
and when it comes to OnlyFans, I've discovered through like the big prominent girls who are making like people's salaries in like a month on there. They're
Yeah,
like,
I saw
OnlyFans was
that.
like, yeah, oh man, if I was making a tenth of that, I could just quit. Anyway, um, I noticed that OnlyFans was caught in a few lies. Now, this is just from what I've seen. I'm not making an actual legal statement or whatever, but they were like, oh, the banks and the people who process our money are anti-porn. And then a couple girls who are big creators pointed out, like, no, a lot of these process stuff for like Pornhub and things like that. I
Huh.
think what it was is that OnlyFans was trying to make just a shift in their own branding. Maybe it was because for investor reasons. It's hard to really tell. I mean, our government tells us stuff all the time that's supposed to be true. We find out, 20 years from now, it's not. But anyway, um, so that's what was happening. They were trying to make more of a shift content wise. I think it was more, if it was for financing, I understand that, because you do run a risk of, because I know one part of their reasoning was you couldn't have like gore. I believe one else, like, so I feel like there was something going on,
Weird,
like with
yeah.
some
Like,
creative, yeah, that they were putting out some obviously questionable, who knows, illegal stuff, because you always have those assholes who push the limits of stuff no matter what,
yeah, that's
knowing they shouldn't be doing it. So I feel like there's probably some behind the scenes stuff we didn't know, but they were trying to
yeah,
make that shift from porn to your grandma cooking, I guess.
yeah. Maybe something
Um,
like that.
yeah, but like you said, when your creators 80% adult content, there goes 80% of your money right then and there.
Yeah,
So when they started leaving, then they kind of was like, oh no, we were just JK, LOL, come on back. But a lot of people went to like Fansly and stuff like that.
okay.
Um, I thought about making that shift, but to be honest with you, like trying to do a 9 to 5 that usually turns into like a 9 to 2 a.m. and then having the energy to do OnlyFans can be very difficult. You know,
Yeah.
like it's always hard to keep your audience when you're like, hey, I'm going to post Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or whatever, and then Monday hits, and then you're tired and you just don't. So there is anyone who wants to start an OnlyFans or content in general, as you probably know, you gotta keep on schedule. It's like if your
Yeah.
favorite TV show is supposed to come on every Thursday and it doesn't come on Thursday, you're like, what the heck happened? So, but it is a job within itself. And then when it
Yeah.
comes to PE, I try going the daily route for content, but you have to rest, you have to relax. Um, when it comes to PE2, it's more of experimentation and writing it down, then repeating that experiment and then finalizing it. It's like a porn scientific method, I guess you could say. Um, so OnlyFans is good for that because I also found that you're less likely to get your stuff stolen. Now, if you
Okay.
are on the internet, someone
Chances are,
99%,
yeah.
yeah, it's someone's already copied it, whatever. But one of the issues I was having was a while back, someone took some stuff I was posting on Pornhub, cropped out my signature and everything.
Oh,
Somehow I
what?
was able to post it on YouTube. Yes, this is a whole ordeal. I think I probably could find the Twitter thread where I'm like going after YouTube, like, hey, this person's literally stealing my stuff and then posting on here, which I didn't think they could even post that on there.
Yeah, it
But the
was
thing that,
hmm.
yeah, yeah, and the
Alright.
thing that really ticked me off about that was they were selling some BS like pills or whatever.
Oh, they had like an
And
affiliate link to it
yes,
too.
they did. And
Huh.
people were, and I know people were clicking it because when I finally called the person out, he's like, MFR, I don't care. I made 13 grand off your ass. I was like, you made
What?
13 grand scamming people? And YouTube did nothing about it. So OnlyFans was a great way of, and Pornhub as well too. I'm going back and forth with my I guess account affiliate, whatever they're called, and
Yeah.
they're like, oh, we really can't do anything. I'm like, what is going on? But OnlyFans, everything's DCMA struck, so it's very easy if you wanted to go after people who do that. But at the
Yeah.
same time, too, you don't really care that much because I've seen a few of my videos elsewhere, and it's kind of like when I was on Pornhub only, it was trying to get the views, just to make a little bit of change, and I have like 1.5 million total views, and that was enough one time just to pay my rent. Like it's not like I'm just making a killing and I'm just swimming in gold, because when you put that effort in, you make like $2-3 off of it. Honestly, you're like, yeah, okay, whatever. But then when someone steals it and they do that, you're like, what the hell?
Oh
It's
yeah.
not even the fact that that's my money; it's the fact that you stole my stuff and now you're profiting off of it. But with OnlyFans, it's kind of like if someone takes that video, I made my little $8, but that money goes more towards me being able to buy equipment. Like I have like 3 bathrooms now. That was all my OnlyFans.
Yeah.
That's more for me to reinvest into making content than anything else.
Oh,
So
100%
OnlyFans is
agree
great
with
for
you.
that.
Yeah. I mean, well, that's the thing. At least you know what you can kind of keep doing and keep getting more equipment. Like for me, I'm in the same way, right? Like I just bought some sleeves, and my wife's like, "Hey, where'd you get that? What money you?" I'm like, "Oh, listen, honey."
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, exactly.
I use it off some of the promotional stuff that I have, and it's great in that sense too. But honestly, if people start, just jacking your stuff, man, like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's just
And it's like, okay, at least I made, because like this isn't really even for me to make money off of. It's always, if I have the incentive to be able to, I hope my boss never sees this, but I've made enough sometimes where I can call a day or two off. Because my thing is, it's like it's so interesting. If you do overtime, it seems like you make an extra $100. You call off of
yeah,
work, you somehow lose $300. So being able to have that freedom to say, okay, I can replace a little bit of that income for the day I called off and focus on this is great.
yeah,
It's nothing to run home about. I'm not buying any Lamborghinis anytime soon, but that money is great because then I can also say I can put money into content. Like I bought some stuff for rigs, like I said, the pumps. When people have questions like, hey, I want, can you look into hanging and stuff like that? I have
yeah,
thought of it, but then this is like a savings account to just go right back into that.
Exactly. Reinvest it into yourself.
Exactly, because I feel like a lot of these companies know, like, okay, guys are interested in PE, we're gonna see how much we can charge them for it. Stuff
Yeah.
isn't cheap. It
No,
really
no,
isn't.
not at all, man.
No. And that's why, like, even on my when it comes to PE, I talk to guys about using the proper pumps. I feel like that's
Yeah.
very important in terms of safety. Getting gauges, and they're like, it's expensive, and I'm like, it
Yeah,
is.
it is.
Like, yeah, like it is, and I don't know why it is, but I also feel like I'm one of those people. Like, my wife will even tell you, if there's a reason behind the price and the quality, I'll pay for it.
Yeah.
If I ever go to, like, I don't know, I'm going to go buy a phone, and you can't tell me why it's, like, give me a reason why it's $1,300, I don't buy it.
No,
If you
exactly.
So when it comes to the pumps, it's like, I talk about gauges, I talk about the proper rubber hose, I talk about the proper handles, things like that, a flange. You can go to Hustler and get a $20 pump with a little ball, yeah, and it's
Yeah, yeah,
bullcrap.
yeah. No, and that
Yeah.
thing's gonna break in like a month. It's like I've seen the Pump Works one too. I don't know if you've seen that like really cheap plasticky looking thing. I think it's more of a novelty item anyways, but they're charging like
Hmm.
$80. And I told my buddy, I'm like, bro, don't get that because he was asking me. And I'm like, no, that's trash, dude. That's gonna break probably in about 3 months. And who knows what's gonna
Yeah.
happen inside of it. I'm like, get something good with the gauge. You want a quality pump, get a little love pump. As far as hydro pumps go, Penimate, Bathmate, but don't settle for this crappy stuff. And I mean, the reason
Yeah.
why I think they charge so much for PEs because they know that we're willing to pay for it. But like anything else in life, it's different when you go for something that's high end, of value, top quality versus the cheap stuff, right? So,
Yeah.
sometimes I feel like it is the price to pay, but hey, you know what? It is what it is. I mean, we don't control the industry, but and
Yeah.
one thing I was going to ask you too, you said you were going to get into hanging and you haven't done any hanging yet whatsoever, or no?
No, because when it comes to, I'm a very slow person before I jump into something. Um, and just in general, like, I need to, I wouldn't say it's analysis paralysis, but I need to research. I need to see how did this work for this person? Why did it not work for this person? I understand the concepts of hanging, but the version of hanging I wanted to try to get into was more for Kegel bases. I wanted to
Okay.
start with, like, the lightest weight possible and try from there. Um, and also, as well too, before I, like, show people stuff, I like to experiment myself, because
Yeah.
honestly, my biggest fear with, like, with this content is someone like, oh, I fucked myself up. And I don't want, and like, I don't want it to be like, hey, I literally followed everything you said to the T, and this went wrong. And that's like,
Yeah.
it's like a trainer at the gym who their person
Defeats
gets
the
hurt.
purpose. Yeah.
Exactly. And then you're like, oh, like, what did I do wrong? Is it them? Was it actually me? So that's like, I don't like to just show, like, hey, I'm hanging now. You should too. I go, hey, I did hanging for a week. These are the things that you need to focus on that are bad. This is what's great about it. I like to have the curriculum ready before I teach the class, if that makes sense.
Oh, that makes 100%.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I want to get into that. My only thing is, I'm trying to find out, um, is there certain brands that are better? Is there certain devices that are better? Does it matter the type of weight it is?
Yeah.
So things like that. Now I've seen videos of these Chinese men whose
Oh,
PC
yeah, dude.
muscles. You already know I'm about
Yeah,
to.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I've seen that, but
yeah. They're like,
nah, nah,
yeah.
nah.
I don't want to get to that level. That's crazy to me. Not like being able to pick up a whole boulder with your dick. Like,
Yeah,
forget
like,
that.
but you know what? With those guys too, it's kind of because I just wrote an article about hanging, right? And you can check it out at
Mhm.
masculinehealthsolutions.com. But
There
yeah,
you
you can
go.
totally check it out. I just wrote an article about, my top hangers that I've seen on the market. Though I have not bought these, I can tell that these ones are the quality products. And then Daniel Gray from jealousgain.com, he actually designed it. He's got an engineering background. And then but yeah, man, when it comes to hanging in that, like I saw the same video with the Chinese dudes, and like my argument is this: I'm not looking to be the strongest guy in the gym. It's kind of like powerlifting versus bodybuilding, It's
Yes.
like I'm not looking to, I was like, oh, dude, I can hang a car off my dick. It's like, okay, big
Yeah.
deal, but how big is it? Like
Exactly.
like I'm
Exactly.
going more with the bodybuilder angle in that I'm trying to gain as much size as possible, right? And now that's kind of why I'm like, you know what? Okay, that's cool. You guys can lift boulders, but if the length isn't there, it kind of defeats the purpose for me,
Exactly. Exactly. So you can lift her up with your dick, but
Yeah.
when it comes to actual sex, she's like, oh, okay. But that's my thing too. Like, I'm actually going to look up that article because I want to know what makes you think, okay, this is a good product versus.
Yeah.
So I want to get into hanging. I've also thought about some of the stretchers. Now, the medical extenders, a lot of urologists have said like, hey, these actually work.
Yeah.
But then I'm always like, well, joking doesn't work, even though it's almost the exact same thing. But I like to look into, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I
yeah.
like
It's
to look into
oxymoronic.
stuff. Exactly. You're telling me stretching one way works, not stretching the other. So I'm just very slow when it comes to giving out information. Um, I mean, people come to me and they'll ask me like, "What kind of car do you like?" And I'm like, "Well, I can give you 20 reasons why this car works and 20 reasons why." That's just how I
Yeah.
am. So when it comes to my OnlyFans and sharing that information, sometimes I've actually experimented with it before they even know about it.
Yeah.
So I kind of have to do that false face, like, "Hey guys, have you heard of this? It's great." But then I've already played around with it, but it's also my introduction to it as well too.
Well, it's kind of
So
like a
yeah,
showcase, right? When there's nothing wrong with that because you kind of want to show the product, what I learned about it, using it, all that kind of stuff, right? And
yeah,
no, it totally makes sense.
yeah. And I've actually had a few of those pill companies like, hey, promote our product, we'll give you like $500, a grand or two. I'm like, I could use that money, but the thing is, like we were talking about earlier, it doesn't really do much for you. And
No, yeah.
I'm very conscientious about what I talk about. Like I'm very conscientious about making sure that I've tried it. If I haven't tried it, I don't promote it.
No,
Like,
exactly.
so
There's a couple, like, as far as supplements go, like I said, man, some of them are not bad, and it's
yeah,
well, they're not bad, they're good, right? They improve circulation. But as far as the false claims go of like, this will make your dick twice as big overnight, I'm like, bro, come on, man, like, step off. if,
yeah,
if that's the way that you guys are selling your product, I'm like, I don't want any part of it. But if it's other
yeah,
things,
exactly.
more about like, you know what, this will just help out with circulation, help out with overall health and erectile quality, I'm like, I can get behind that. That's like a professional way to go about doing it versus, this is just going to make you mandingo overnight, and I'm like, nah, dude, like.
Exactly. And that's actually the stereotype I have to fight with PE a lot is that they're like, well, if this is supposed to make you this big, why aren't you this big? I'm like, well, for one, not trying to be that big. Two, it's very unrealistic. Three, there's no reason to be that big. And four, you're getting fed all the BS from those stupid advertisements you see on porn sites. I've looked into Viagra. People are like, well, Viagra helps with growth. I'm like, Viagra helps you just gain the biggest erection possible. So if
Yeah,
you had erection like issues beforehand, where yeah, you were getting hard, but instead of your hard being full, stiff, rigid, it's kind of limp and limsy. And then you take Viagra and it's full, stiff, and rigid. You're like, oh wow, I am bigger. That's actually the size you've always been. You just weren't able to achieve it.
yeah,
And I do talk about herbs and stuff like Yohimbe. L-arginine is one of those things where you have to take more of. It does help with nitric oxide buildup, which
yeah, I
what
know
how you
boosters and that, yeah.
exactly. So some of this stuff is science, but at the same time too, it's like you don't always need it.
No.
Um, yeah, because I've told some people they're like, "What pills do you take in order to do this?" And I tell people the pills I take were more of me discovering them by accident because we're trying to have kids, and I realized like, hey, these actually help with sperm quality,
Fertility.
volume, stuff like
Yeah,
exactly. And I was like, well, they also seem to help with this as well too. So I was like, Yohimbe does help with blood flow, which is what you need.
yeah.
Obviously, vitamin E does help with. So it's kind of one of those things where I'm like, you don't really need to do this, but you can if you want to.
Yeah.
Once again, like the guy at GNC, it's an aid. It doesn't make you grow. Because if stuff made you grow, I would be teaching guys how to get smaller. Like guys, we fucked up. We all have dick carriers because it's just too much.
It's just like you went over the top, man.
Exactly. But I also get why they're doing that because it's kind of like good example, like diet culture. When you feel like you've tried everything, you're willing to try the things that you're deep down you're like this is BS, but maybe it will work.
Yeah.
And I get that. With like some me being still chubby and stuff. I'm like, okay, let me try doing this. Let me try doing that. And eventually you get to the point where you're just like, you know what? I'll just get it sucked out and hope that works. And I get that. That's where because I've always thought like no one can fall for this. Like
Yeah.
these stupid animations. Like there's this one I've seen of those pill things, and it'll always be this black guy who is just ridiculously big, and he always has a dick ring on. I've actually met him on LPSG, and he's like, I've tried suing these companies because they're using my image or using my videos. I have never even used that stuff. He has a form of, I think he said sickle cell, and
Oh
sometimes
yeah,
that
sickle
build,
cell anemia. Yeah.
yeah. So that will actually,
Yeah.
and it's weird. I've seen forums like, how do you give yourself sickle cell for bigger dick? Don't obviously don't do that. But he said, like, I was kind of born this way. It's more of a problem than it is just being hung. But, you know, a lot of guys will see that. And once again, going back to our body dysmorphia, not being happy with yourself, they think that, okay, maybe this is going to work. Maybe this
Yeah.
is I might, but maybe I'll go two and that's good enough. So I try to always put the empathetic side on that because I get it. I'm like, you're trying everything, it's not working. So now you're just going whatever you can. And I think that's where you need to come and look at yourself and really realize, like, okay, why am I changing this? Why do I want to change this? Because, like we talked about bodybuilding, in terms of like biologically speaking, there's no reason for us to be like that unless we're out literally fighting bears for food.
Yeah.
There's no reason for us to be these monstrous strong people. Unless you're like a construction worker and being able to lift that cement bag over your shoulders, the best way for that makes sense. I look at like Ronnie Coleman, like my all-time favorite,
Oh
and I'm
yeah.
like, just mental. But I'm like, I don't need to be like, I don't need to be anywhere near Ronnie Coleman's size.
Well,
Looks like you could
no.
barely wipe your own ass. So but it's the same thing when it comes to guys, trying to figure themselves out, especially when we're younger. We think there's a certain Chad mode we're all supposed to be. We're supposed to be that big hung, strong dude, and that's what's going to bring in the ladies. That's what's going to bring in the attention. And unfortunately, you have those examples where it's true. You will have that. There was a guy at my high school. It made no sense how cut he was. Like and it wasn't just cut. He was just huge. And I
Yeah.
remember we had our own personal gym at the high school. I'm working out and lifting. And he's like, "Did you just lift that?" I'm like, "Yeah, bro, yeah." He's a cool dude, but pissed him off. So he starts lifting it too, and then of course he's out lifting, and I was like, "Whatever." But you see guys like that who get the girls. You hear that locker room talk where, you see that dude in the locker room. You're like, "What the fuck is that thing on his body?" You know the girls who say like, "Oh, you're small" and stuff like that, and it does affect them. It does bring you down a bit, and I understand it. But there also has to be some rationality of who you are before you try to change who you are.
Of
Because
course.
then
Yeah.
yeah, because you get lost in thinking like you're already big. I have to be bigger now. You're already rich. I have to be richer now. There's never a end to it. And
Yeah.
that goes with anything, especially with PE. Like when it comes to pumping, it's great to get out of the pump and you're just like, whoa, that's crazy. And I try to establish to guys that when you're pumping, you're not trying to pack the pump right then and there.
Yeah.
This needs to be a gradual process. Get out, warm up, joke, pump for only X amount of time. That's why I love the bath mate, because it even tells you on the box 5-minute sessions. That's it. They're not trying to pump for half an hour. There's no reason for it. But then I have guys who told me, like, yeah, I did this for an hour or two. And I always ask them, what is your routine? What was your warm up routine? Oh, nothing. I just stayed in it. I'm like, don't do that, but I get it.
Yeah.
I really do.
No, it's understandable. I mean, it's like anything else in life. Like I always go back to, you just want to level up. And I
Yeah.
think,
Oh, yeah.
our mind's eye is always going to be very different from our physical eyes. We're going to see it completely different. And then sometimes for me, my best frame of reference is my wife, because it's kind of like, no, she'll put me in check about everything. She doesn't care.
Oh yes. Oh yes, they will. But you need that though.
Yeah, you do. And it's crazy too, because like, I mean, I wrote a couple articles and I talked about it before where like for her, man, like I made length gains that were impressive, right? Like over 2-inch gains. And I was like, dude, this is wicked. This is mind blowing. She did not care at all.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
made girth gains of 1/2 inch and she was ecstatic. And she's like, go in this
Yes.
direction. I do not care about the other thing. That's just you and your ego. I'm like, that's fantastic, but I still want to make these gains, man. And she's like, well,
Yeah.
it's good, like whatever. She's like, that's purely aesthetic, and it really gave me that, frame of reference where I'm like, huh, you know what? I wonder if it's just my wife or more women kind of think like this. And sure enough, do some digging in it, man. Girth kind of reigns supreme, but we're always kind of focused in that direction because we've been kind of led to believe like, oh, this is what they want, and it's like, well, not the
Yeah.
case.
Yeah. Even when you watch those porn videos of like I always talk about Julio Gomez. To me is the Ronnie Coleman. It's just unnecessary. I'm like, if I was a woman, I would like cut. I'm not doing this. I don't feel like having reverse birth happen. Fuck, forget this. But women don't care about that. And it's kind of like I've given an example of like you have a Ferrari. You tell them I have a Ferrari. I have an 8-inch dick. I have a Ferrari, and eventually it just becomes like cool. It's just like, all right, cool, yeah, you got a Ferrari. Oh, you got 8-inch. Oh, that's great. You can't drive the Ferrari for shit. You almost wreck it every time you get into it. You have 8 inches, but you're like hitting her cervix and she hates it, or you're just sitting there. Like my wife and I, we're like I said, sexually open. You can talk about anything. She's told me she's had guys who are big, and they think that's just the only reason. They just stick it in, and they're like, yeah, you like that? And she's like, you gonna do something, or like what's happening right now?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, you got it, if it's ego for you. Because if you go around telling your potential sexual partner that you're 8 inches, like a lot of them go like, oh wow, cool, but it's like, so what? I saw this TikTok that was hilarious, and I can't believe I'm about to say it. I've been watching TikTok, but this guy showed this girl his Wells Fargo account with like how much money he has. She's like, do you think that's supposed to impress me? He's like, it should. That's exactly the mentality you give off when you
Yeah.
say that. Like, this should impress you. You should be on your knees. I know we're at our pushes right now, but you should be blowing me under the table because you're just so impressed with what. That's not how it works at all. And
No.
I feel like that is the mentality we're fed of. Like, you see porn videos where she's like crawling to her knees and she's just like, oh my God, look at it. And you're just like, ugh. It's kind of weird when you really think about it afterwards, but I get it. I do.
Yeah, it's understandable. All right, well, I'm just gonna wrap it up here. But just tell us a little bit more, Jordan, about where we can find you, about your OnlyFans program, and just give us a little bit more on more info, more context stuff.
Yes, sir. Everything is getting bigger 9. GETTING BIGGER, the number 9. That's on Gmail, so you can send me email, Twitter, OnlyFans, of course. I'm probably moving a little over to Fansly because I understand there's an exodus of OnlyFans still. I always tell people, give me time to message you. OnlyFans is the fastest way to message me. Why? Not only because you paid for it, but that's where I try to put all my attention to because I only have like 1,500 followers on Twitter, and I swear I have 1,500 messages. So yeah, it's crazy, but those are the best ways to contact me. My replies might be slow because I try to have in-depth conversations with everyone.
Okay.
Because if you have questions, I will answer, and I'll even let you know, hey, sorry, 300 people over here. I had 30-minute conversations each, but those are the best ways to get with.
Awesome. Well, it was a pleasure talking to you, and I can't wait to talk to
Yes,
you
sir.
again, man.
Oh heck yeah, dude! You're awesome. You're very cool. I enjoyed this immensely.
All right, guys. Until the next episode.
Peace.